Before Diane Lane made her mark in Hollywood, she faced a reality that was far from the glamour that later came with her success in the industry. She faced a series of challenges, coming from a broken family, which saw her caught in the middle of a heated custody battle. Despite all these, she was able to make a name for herself, becoming one of the greatest talents to have ever come out of Hollywood. Despite her successes, it seemed her troubled childhood affected her ability to retain emotional bonds, which saw her caught in several romantic relationships and even rumored to have had affairs with some of Hollywood's biggest names. Now in her 50s, Lane has made some shocking revelations about these relationships. Just stick with us as we unravel these mysteries. Diane Lane was born into a world of complexity and contradiction in New York City on January 22, 1965. Her early life was molded by the turbulent relationship between her parents and the unending custody battles that followed. Diane's childhood experiences weren't that of an ordinary child. It was filled with extraordinary events that later would be subjects of fascination and empathy. This forced her to take charge of her own life at a very early age. Diane was born to Burton Lane, a Manhattan drama coach, and Colleen Farrington, a nightclub singer and Playboy centerfold. While her parents' lives were deeply intertwined in the entertainment industry, their love for the arts could do little to bridge the emerging gulf in their marriage. It seemed that they were both too committed to their careers to focus on things that actually mattered. When Diane was just 13 days old, her parents had separated. The reasons are complex and personal, relating to their conflicting lifestyles. With this separation, young Diane was in for a very bitter chapter of her life that would be full of the resentment that her parents had for each other. This separation set the stage for a long and bitter custody struggle. Unusually for the period, since courts usually granted mothers custody, Diane was committed to the care of Burton Lane. However, her father later won the battle in court and started taking care of Diane. While with her father, she lived in New York City, and life for her was very theatrical due to her father's career. Her father, so committed to her upbringing as he was, tried with the best of intentions to raise her without a motherly figure. The custody arrangement put Colleen Farrington and her daughter against each other right from the beginning. The older Diane got, the more desperate her mother was to make amends. Colleen became so desperate and kidnapped Diane in one fateful and heartbreaking move when the latter was just 6 years old. This jolting turn of events had completely disrupted the already shaky ground that Diane's childhood was on. Colleen took Diane to Georgia, away from her familiar New York home and fatherly care. The indelible mark it left on the mind of young Diane she would later describe as feeling torn between two opposing worlds. The kidnapping ended when Diane returned to her father after a legal battle. The emotional scars of this incident did not go so fast. These became experiences that heavily impacted Diane in those early stages. While her father did the best he could to make sure she had a secure upbringing, there were also the stresses coming from being part of a broken family. The interest her father showed in her education and in opening her mind to the arts fought constantly against the remnants of the influence her mother had left. Diane would look back at her childhood years as complex, finding it really difficult to define some of the happenings that took place. While the father brought in discipline and creativity, the sporadic presence of the mother made things less predictable. This turbulent family scene became the first experience that Diane had of deep bonds, which likely left an imprint in her psyche and would end up affecting some of her later relationships. By her teenage years, that eventful, turbulent childhood had begun to bear fruits of influence in the series of her personal decisions. At 15, she had done what was considered most unanticipated and scandalous at such a tender age to have eloped with a fellow actor, Christopher Atkins, from the Blue Lagoon. Reflecting on these events, Diane describes this as a romance lit by the fires of youth rebellion and the cry for independence. The elopement was one of the dramatic chapters in her life and underlined her wishes to be far from the complexities involved with her family dynamics. Such a decision, even though short-lived, was the hallmark of that one period in Diane's life when she did take matters into her own hands. It added another layer of complication to an already tumultuous upbringing, and set the themes of resilience and self-discovery that would define her later years. Today, some see this move as a desperate move to find some stability and semblance of love that was missing in her family. Marking part of Diane Lane's early life were custody battles, her mother's desperate act of kidnapping, and early elopement. The components of this story speak volumes about the strength of the human spirit. Events in life that may easily have derailed her into some kind of oblivion instead formed the bedrock for her strength and independence. All were building blocks of the character that we all know today. It speaks volumes of the strength of her character that she was able to go through such a childhood so graciously and made a life for herself. Her youth gives great insight into the complexities of family and the way a family can press deeply into the soul of a young person. In the midst of it all, Diane Lane emerged as not just a survivor but a beacon of hope and perseverance. In all of these, it was Eleanor Scott, imposing, poised, and wise, who turned out to be a strong, normalizing factor in those disturbed early years of Diane, thus playing a very major role in her decision to take up acting. Eleanor had not only been important in Diane's private life, but also very important for the shaping of her passion for acting. It was within that relationship, the interactions of a grandmother and a granddaughter, that the bedrock for the artistic ambitions that drove Diane onto the stages and then eventually to the screen was formed. From a very tender age, Eleanor Scott knew that Diane was a bright young girl. She brought into Diane's life the much-needed stability and encouragement in a family torn asunder by the separation of her parents. Eleanor Scott was not just a caretaker. She initiated Diane into literature, drama, and the performing arts. It was Eleanor who encouraged Diane to channel her energy and emotion into creative expression. Eleanor encouraged her natural charisma and talent, and did not let her granddaughter waste her potential. Eleanor often took Diane to plays and other cultural events, thus instilling in her a love of telling stories and performances. These exposures planted the seed of Diane's ambition to be an actress. Prompted by Eleanor, Diane started auditioning for theater at the age of 6 years old. Her obvious talent and poise landed her a role in Mediat, the famous La Mama Experimental Theater Club in New York City. The audience was mesmerized, and thus an acting career was born. Whatever the case, Eleanor did believe in Diane and gave courage to the young actress to play more parts. By her early teens, Diane was a presence in New York theater circles. Her natural talent and magnetic stage presence set her apart and started to draw the attention of casting directors and filmmakers. Diane Lane made the transition from stage to screen in 1979 when, at 14 years of age, she was cast in A Little Romance, along with Sir Laurence Olivier. The George Roy Hill-directed film told of a young American girl who, while staying in Paris, falls in love with a French boy. Indeed, such a realistically charming performance by Diane drew great praise to her feat and made her an overnight sensation as one of the most promising new faces in Hollywood. Some couldn't believe that the chemistry that they witnessed was just acting and suspected that there was something more to it. The role in A Little Romance marked a milestone in Diane's career, as it introduced her to an international audience and showed she was holding it down along with seasoned actors like Olivier. She received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Comedy or Musical, and really sealed her position among Hollywood's most promising talents at such a tender age. Another element in the breadth of Diane's acting talent was in her work with Francis Ford Coppola on the films The Outsiders and Rumblefish, both adaptations of novels written by S.E. Hinton. This film featured ensemble casts, replete with many other young stars-to-be such as Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, and Matt Dillon. In the movie adaptation of The Outsiders, she played the role of Cherry Valance, the girl between the divides of social class. With subtlety in her acting, that story of loyalty and identity was given new dimensions. Similarly, her portrayal of Patty in the movie Rumblefish was that of a blend of vulnerability and strength. One of the most famous roles for Diane was in Adrian Lyne's drama Unfaithful. Diane played the role of Connie Sumner, a suburban wife whose extramarital affair got out of control. This raw and emotional performance saw her receive an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. During these promising stages of her career, Diane made sure to put in her best, building a solid base of die-hard fans. Her portrayal of Connie is relatable and sad, really capturing both her audiences and critics at large. This role so far has been one of her defining ones due to her immense skill for morphing into gray-shaded characters. Her role in Under the Tuscan Sun brought her great acclaim and established her as one of the leading actresses in romantic dramas. She played Frances Mays, a recently divorced writer who relocates to Italy to start all over again, with resilience and self-discovery. The success of the film echoed worldwide, and Diane's performance became a beacon of hope and reinvention. Under the Tuscan Sun further sealed her reputation as an incredibly versatile actress who could carry a film on her shoulders. In HBO's Cinema Verite, Diane played Pat Loud, the matriarch of a family featured in one of the first reality TV series, An American Family. Her performance was moving and incisive, exposing the painful emotional cost of living a life in the public eye. The role earned her critical acclaim and showcased her ability to bring historical figures to life with authenticity and depth. At this stage in her career, the troubles of her childhood seemed like a forgotten nightmare, overshadowed by her numerous successes. Diane Lane has been able to give to this world of movies much more than just acting itself. She has been successfully picking parts that have toyed with the societal limits of acceptance, choosing harder subjects to show her talent in front of the camera, inspiring a generation of actresses worldwide that women can do it, pushing women to do such roles with so much inner strength and emotional depth. Longevity within the film industry proved her adaptability and skill. Indeed, Diane did seem to ease from playing defined roles to portraying mature and multidimensional characters with apparent ease. Her hard work earned respect among her colleagues and engraved her legacy as one of the most accomplished actresses in Hollywood. From theater's rising talent to a Hollywood star, Diane Lane's journey is a perfect example of immense talent and grit. Grown into an icon in the industry, she fits various genres with ease and can get as real as possible into the skin of her characters, be it a lover torn between conflicting desires, a woman starting anew, or even a historical character. Diane has given performances that strike a chord with the audience. These early influences, set in place courtesy of her grandmother Eleanor, provided the building blocks for a career typified by passion and excellence. She was able to ride the tide of challenges thrown at her by Hollywood while staying true to her artistic vision and becoming a source of inspiration to the aspiring actor and filmmaker. Diane Lane is now a veteran actress in Hollywood with more than 2.5 decades in the business, but she definitely reminds us all of how transformative a movie can get with extraordinary talent on board. From very fabulous highs to terrible lows, Diane Lane's career has seen it all. But every time she seemed uncertain and a career setback came knocking at her door, here stands the lady, tall, strong as ever, and committed to her work. It is through perseverance and exceptional talent that Diane was able to overcome such obstacles and have some of her most memorable performances during her comebacks. Through her struggles, she became a shining example of strength and artistry. Her career trajectory has won her critical acclaim and a spate of awards. Diane Lane's career trajectory started off really well. As a young star transitioned into screen work without incident from stage performances. Her instant success came when she began with her 1979 debut in A Little Romance, and combining this with the work that came forth in collaboration with Francis Ford Coppola on The Outsiders, followed by Rumble Fish, made her a rising star. This was despite all the challenges that she has had to face. Despite all these, she was determined to put in the work and make the best out of her career. Diane hit a bit of a rough patch in the mid-1980s, when most of her films, including The Cotton Club, released in 1984, and Streets of Fire, received somewhat cold responses at the box office. Critics and various other insiders in the trade started doubting her major role-carrying skills. This backlash really sent her reeling, and consequently, the leading parts began to dry up. She was disenchanted with Hollywood at the time and took a back seat for some time. However, after a while, she made a comeback with increased determination, taking on roles that allowed her to rebuild her reputation. Her performance in Lady Beware in 1987, though not a blockbuster, was representative of her range and reminded audiences of her talent. This period of reinvention underlined her resilience as she refused to be defined by previous setbacks. By the 1990s, Diane began to reinvent herself with supporting roles, again adding depth to her acting. Her performances in such films as Chaplin in 1992 and A Walk on the Moon in 1999 garnered awards, testifying to her reemergence. The latter in particular was a comeback film, where she played the housewife torn apart by her personal desires, and had been so well received by audiences and critics alike. The year 2002 was one of those defining moments in Diane Lane's career when she gave it her all in the movie Unfaithful. As Connie Sumner, a suburban wife whose life gets disrupted by an affair, Diane plunged into raw, emotionally charged performances with such brilliance that audiences and critics alike found it riveting. This role required her to deal with complex emotional depth and moral ambiguity, which she portrayed with astonishing veracity. This movie brought her an Academy Award nomination as Best Actress, one of many Golden Globe nominations, and quite a few other awards. This recognition announced the complete return of a performer who again deserved to be regarded as one of the brightest stars in Hollywood. The triumph of Unfaithful wasn't just a triumph but a turning point, which really rebuilt the actor's career. Even as Unfaithful brought acclaim, Diane met with mixed success in subsequent projects like Nights in Rodanthe in 2008, yet continued to move ahead, always accepting different roles. Films such as Under the Tuscan Sun in 2003 showcase her abilities to connect emotionally with her audience. Based on Frances May's memoir, this romantic drama went on to be one of those sleeper hits and happens to be one of the most loved films by Diane. At the same time, doing independent films showed how well she could present herself according to the various dimensions she performed in. Continuing to be committed to her work in every genre that fits has always made her relevant and brought her respect in the industry. To Diane Lane, the 2010 brought new challenges. Projects like HBO's 2011 Cinema Verite, in which she played Pat Loud, remain an exemplar of reality TV to this day. She perpetually took on challenging characters and continued to reinforce herself as one of the living power actresses. Her performance saw her receive an Emmy nomination for it. However, high-profile films like Man of Steel in 2013 and its sequels were more or less commercial successes with the underutilization of her talent. But all this hardly daunted Diane, as she remained undaunted by these disappointments, committed to choosing roles that provided scope for varied interpretations of her art. Highly impressive was her performance in the 2015 film Trumbo, where her restraint lent the role much-needed shades. Over her career, she has earned numerous awards and recognitions in the process. These include an Academy Award nomination she received as Best Actress for Unfaithful in 2002. This placed her among the leading actresses of her generation. She won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Motion Picture for Unfaithful and received additional nominations for Under the Tuscan Sun in 2003 and Cinema Verite in 2011. She also got an Emmy Award nomination for her work in Cinema Verite for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Miniseries or a Movie. Besides the critically acclaimed status, Diane won Best Actress for Unfaithful for the National Society of Film Critics Award. She does have some Screen Actors Guild Award nominations too. She has been nominated several times, including in the category of Ensemble in Trumbo 2015. These awards and nominations are a reflection not only of her talent but also of her resilience in the ups and downs of the demanding industry. Such hard periods Diane Lane had to go through during her career, and yet getting each time stronger, are evidence of her resilience and devotion. In such a way, she managed to create one of the most overwhelming stories of hanging on and never giving up. Constantly reinventing herself, choosing parts that buck conventional molds, Diane has managed to carve out a unique niche for her art in Hollywood. Her influence runs deep, from her performances to an entire generation of actresses who look upon her sincerity and commitment to her craft. Diane Lane is still a brilliant example of how persistence, talent, and passion can lead to enduring success, even in the face of challenges. With steadfast commitment to telling the story, she has secured a legacy as one of the most versatile and respected actresses of her time. Diane Lane's personal life often runs parallel to and receives just as much attention as her illustrious career, from high-profile marriages and rumored relationships to other personal experiences. Each one influences her differently and shapes her personal journey, sometimes crossing into her professional life. The thrust into stardom took place while Diane was just beginning to enjoy her childhood. Indeed, she had to live through numerous rumors about her personal relationships. During her teens, while transitioning from a child performer to a Hollywood star, Diane was being tagged to all sorts of male lead actors. These rumors were mere speculation but underlined her life being under scrutiny. Rumors of the many relationships in her early years include one with her The Outsiders co-star, Matt Dillon. On screen, the chemistry between the two no doubt really helped fuel the speculation of a real romance, but it was never confirmed by either of them. The connection simply added to off-screen intrigue from the public about Diane's life. At 15, Diane ran off with actor Christopher Atkins, the Blue of 1980. It was a runaway romance, her rebellion to be out of the pressures of Hollywood and parental scrutiny. As expected, the relationship did not last. Their youthful impulsiveness soon subsided. The elopement was one of the most defining moments in her life when she was trying to find a way to balance her drive for independence with a career that required her attention every waking moment. This brief marriage acted as a relationship lesson for Diane, teaching her how to balance love and professional demands. This set the tone for subsequent relationships that would emerge throughout her life, where she'd seek deeper levels of connection and mutual understanding. In the 1980s, Diane Lane took up with actor Timothy Hutton on the heels of his Oscar win for Ordinary People in 1980. The two would soon become one of Hollywood's power couples, and the romance between them received so much attention from the press. Diane and Timothy had great respect for each other in regard to art and talent. They shared much passion for their craft and would support each other through projects quite often too. Eventually, these pressures of fame and schedules drove them apart. This would be an experience that leaves a mark on Diane, forming in her mind the complex dynamics around maintaining a relationship inside this industry. In 1988, Diane Lane married Christopher Lambert, an actor known from Highlander 1986. That marriage became another point in Diane's life where she sought stability and normalcy. Finally, in 1993, they had a daughter named Eleanor who made Diane extremely happy and gave a real feeling of the ground beneath her feet in the middle of her incredibly chaotic career. But their marriage wasn't without its challenges. Both Diane and Christopher were treading the maze of international stardom, which kept them away from each other quite frequently. Even so, the strain from their careers and personal differences pulled them toward divorce in 1994. That experience only solidified her resolve to put her daughter and personal growth first while continuing to thrive professionally. After years of being fully engaged in her career and the upbringing of her daughter, Diane Lane found love again with actor Josh Brolin. The two had been dating since the early 2000s before he married her in 2004. On paper, their love appeared promising to most observers as it rested on a bedrock of mutual passion for acting with depth. But their marriage was pretty troubled, playing out very publicly. Several months into their 2004 marriage, an altercation occurred that led to Josh's arrest on a misdemeanor charge of domestic violence, though Diane did not press charges. The incident drew media attention to their marriage and put extra pressure on their relationship. Diane and Josh divorced amicably after trying to put the marriage together, ending it in 2013 with a cordial feeling towards each other. This is again a test of Diane's strong character with regard to personal adversities that were well managed without jeopardizing professional integrity. Of course, throughout her career, Diane Lane has been linked to some of her more high-profile co-stars. Her on-screen collaborations with other actors like Richard Gere in films such as Unfaithful and Nights in Rodanthe were followed by reports of romantic involvement with the actor. Though on-screen chemistry between the pair generated speculation, both Diane and Richard have denied any other romantic involvement. Other rumored relationships were with John Bon Jovi in the 1980s. In fact, the rock star and the actress were regularly seen going out together, a situation which raised eyebrows about an apparent romance. However, both parties never confirmed what the nature of their relationship was, therefore they remained mysterious. Diane Lane's romantic experiences have had much to do with her maturation process and professional decisions. Very often, her personal life coincides with her career in such a way that the roles she chose coincided with the image the public had of her as an actress. At the peak of heartbreak and times like these, Diane has always shown resilience, taking whatever came from every experience to pour onto the screen, making her character more relatable. While her marriage to Christopher Lambert had given her that sense of grounding, which was translated into the performance of maternal roles in A Walk on the Moon back in 1999. The relationship with Josh Brolin did bring challenges, but did provide ample opportunities for introspection that enriched her approach toward complex characters in her latter works. Today, Diane Lane is admired not just for her talent and inner strength, but also for the independent woman she has proven herself to be. Confirmed and rumored relationships have been part of the journey molding her into the woman and artist she is today. Diane's ability to navigate love and life in the public eye has made her relatable and endearing to fans around the world. Through it all, Diane Lane has been consistent with dedication to her work and herself as a person. It is through these relationships that she shows her longing for stability and love, showing her human side. Diane Lane has one child, a daughter named Eleanor Lambert, born in 1993 during her marriage with the actor Christopher Lambert. Eleanor has worked in the arts as a writer and model. She has followed her parents' creative inclinations. Her mother seemed incredibly proud of her when talking on several occasions about their later bonds. Diane Lane has kept her private life quite in order. With passing years in the limelight, Diane keeps up the pace of these unwinding times, moving between professional activity and personal interests. More so, she has let people in on how much priority goes to her family and good friendships for a strong base apart from the hustle-bustle of Hollywood. She resides in New York City, which befits her love for art and culture, along with a preference for simple living. Diane also does much to stay close to nature, as it is easy to relax while gardening or horseback riding, and take a breather from the pressures of her professional life. Not in the limelight so much these days, Diane still works on projects that speak to her as an artist. She has even undertaken other charity involvement with environmental conservation and women's empowerment. This present life is a great balance of passion for one's profession, personal fulfillment, and commitment to doing good. We would love to know what your opinions about her are in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.